Okay, let's take a look at the AstroNavis merchant games. If you know me, you know I'm not a big fan of solo designs. And this is a solo game, and I'm definitely not a fan of it. So, what did I get from the playthrough? It is one of those very boring types of solo games where basically you're paging through charts, rolling stuff, and just kind of seeing what happens, and what happens isn't that exciting when it comes down to it. The isn't that exciting can be different for different players, right? So I would say on the high end of the isn't, of the roll on charts and see what happens type of thing, games like Source of the Nile, and again, I mentioned before, it was a Decision Games one, and I can't find it over here. It's got to be up here, I think, unless it's down the basement for some strange reason. That was about the Galactic Empire or something like that. And it's basically, it gives a very much of a flavor of, say, the first book of the Foundation trilogy, except that you're playing the Empire as it's being attacked and fought. And I covered it, I don't remember what it's called. I can't find it. These games provide you with sort of a detailed flavoring that, goes into subject matter that I have an enjoyment of. Okay. This one is more on the same level, I would say, as the Hunters games, which I know a lot of people like, so maybe they'd like this. I just find the, hey, roll up, see if you find a ship, and then what happens to you. Same thing with B-17, the bomber solo game. None of these do you have terribly interesting decisions to make in. But I'll have to say this is one of those where the decisions are particularly uninteresting. The narrative is, I can't think of much more boring than going from port to port and having little tiny things happen that for the most part just cost you some money. Although at the end of the game I had the most exciting event that I saw, and it ruined my game completely, but showed me some light as to, yeah, that's kind of cool, right? Like, that's sort of the most awful thing that can happen, or the best thing that can happen, whatever. It was the most influential thing that could happen in the game. Otherwise, though, it's not like the merchant speculation games where you might get really lucky on making a shipment that you're invested in that just gets you lots of money. Here, instead, you're taking up a contract, and you know how much it's going to make, and you know how much it's going to cost you, pretty much on average, to make that run. Well, you know what it's going to cost you in sort of the best case, right? Nothing magical is going to happen. You're just like a tramp steamer hauling, freight. Unlike those steamers, you get paid different amounts for different cargoes. So there's a little bit of weirdness in there that feels kind of odd to me. Like, I think that would be very, very unlikely unless cargo required some kind of special handling or something. But anyway, that's sort of the only decisions you get to make is, hey, what cargo do I want to agree to haul? And, you're just optimizing over a couple of choices, whether or not, you make a little bit more profit running one thing than another, or lose a little less money, or whatever. You do make profit, but your costs may exceed the profit. You're running this constant daily cost, or every turn cost. I don't know how long turns are. Okay, this battery is not being kind. God damn it. I'm having trouble with my chargers today. It's kind of cool. In terms that it has, you know, a randomized setup that's going to give you a generally the same experience, but the specifics are going to be a little different. It's not really that big a deal. You have each planet has its own sort of profile and information, and they're going to be broken into different zones, so you don't get a terribly different setup like you do, say, in Merchant of Venus, where you know something really, really valuable, some kind of really, really valuable trade route could occur or something. Not that you have control over the trade route. You're going to be running off of charts that tell you, oh, you're being requested to bring X goods to Y planet from planet Z, you know, and here's what you get. Do you want it or not? You know, and you basically have between probably between zero. Let's see. Yeah, it's possible for it to be zero. Between 0 and like 3 cargo shipments that you're allowed to make. And you probably can only pick one of them at a time. The realities of the starship, as you know, in terms of profits, etc., as exemplified by the game, and they're probably pretty realistic. It gives really probably a very good feel of what's tonnage hauling, other than the fact that you're not just charging by the hold. What tonnage hauling would be like in this kind of space circumstance. I think in terms of realism, it's great. It's heavily grounded on kind of what again the independent tramp freighters ran like in the 20th century. I don't know how much they still exist. But certainly in the 70s they still did. Now I know we got these humongous cargo ships, and you never hear anything about the little ships, but you see them sometimes when you're in a port or whatever. So they must still be running. Anything terribly exciting? The sequence of play. So in terms of components, first of all, it's a print and play game, so the quality of your components is going to differ. This is probably about as high as you can get, laminated on stock. You know, I would not have done anything like this because unless I really love a game, I'm probably not going to put the effort in. You come with a bunches of tables that just cover all kind of stuff. Look at my intro if you want to see what all the different tables are. But you know, they cover the generation of your cargoes, the random events that you're going to get, the prices that you have to pay for fuel and all that. But in the end, it's really just, hey, did you get a lucky run? And if you did, you know, if you keep getting lucky runs, above average runs, you'll probably win the game. If you don't, you'll probably lose the game. You might break even if you get kind of average luck. And that's kind of the feeling of it. You're not going to make a fortune off of this. And the risks kind of outweigh the rewards across the board, just in terms of like, but the basic game is just you have these goods to deliver that, you know, show up as contracts whenever you're on a planet. Do you want to pick it up or do you not? You know, and that's where the majority of the money comes from in either of the two games. In the basic game, it is all your money, but you're going to be paying a per turn cost for movement and in terms of fuel, which you have to buy, and in terms of just owning your ship costs you $20 each turn. The advanced game adds a lot of chrome to that has very little actual effect on play. It increases your costs a little bit, It gives you some additional tiny sources of revenue, but everything there is just around the margins. You're still playing the core of what is really a very boring game when it comes down to it, at least from my experience and tastes. As soon as I looked at it and started paying attention to the game, that's what I saw. There aren't really a hell of a lot of exciting decisions to make. Remember, I'm someone who often complains that I have too many interesting decisions. I have a fair number of little tiny uninteresting decisions and a whole lot of really uninteresting die rolls that don't generate a lot of story. The only thing that came as story that really massively impacted the game at all was right towards the end. I got fucked over by a planet. I'm not allowed to leave because I have a cargo I have to unload, and I'm just stuck, sitting like with the longshoreman's strike. When that happens or happened, I can remember one more than a decade ago, 15 years ago or so. I don't know. Is that right? More than that, even. I don't know. Anyway, where basically there were just ships and ships and ships parked outside of California waiting so that they could start being serviced. Well, I had an event that was similar to that, and I'm unable to just turn around. I've got a contract I've got to fulfill. And, the bad situation, I don't get any compensation for it. As I fuck with this stupid thing again. I don't have any compensation for it. I'm an independent contractor. I promised I would get the goods there. I didn't really promise a time or anything. Like, I'm not going to be penalized additionally for not being able to make it. But I just sat around at the port with no other options available to me, and I'm spending $20 a turn. And that basically put me from pretty much just breaking even in terms of the game victory conditions to the most massive loss that you can possibly have. And that's like, because I lost like 5 turns or something. The profits from each turn aren't great, but they're okay. You're going to, with reasonable luck, pretty much skim your way into the kind of breaking even and still in business situation. I did not see a single thing in the game, although maybe there is, that allowed me some kind of bonus that was anything like the penalty that I got off that one event. Now, I got kind of the worst event. You can mitigate those events. You can avoid planets where there's dangers like that. But that would have meant a minor loss probably, because I would have had to do a less than ideal shipment had that been the case. Now, let me see. I know there's this one here. Priority cargo. This might be the good one. A golden opportunity shipment is dropped in your lap. Ignore unless you roll for cargo this turn. The very first cargo rolled, full or half, is worth a lot more. Upon delivery, you get paid the normal amount plus a bonus equal to a distance of 1 for that cargo. Full or half load is appropriate. So, for example, a full priority cargo carried 6 squares would be the normal plus a... Yeah, okay. So, that is a pretty big bonus. I don't know if it's on the same level. Like, in terms of money lost, it's about... Like, my 5 turns cost me $100. A cargo like this, if I was running, say machinery, especially if it was a short run, it would be exceedingly valuable because I would get a bonus equal to the delivery of a load of that size one space away. And that is a big chunk of money. Is it equivalent? Well, I don't know. Like that bonus for machinery would have been 111. I spent about $100 on my goods on my ship just sitting there. doing nothing, so I lost $100 there. But much more importantly, I lost the time in which I could have made another run. And so, in addition to the $100 that I lost for time, I kind of didn't lose that. I was going to be spending that time anyway. What I really lost was maybe a decent run in that time, or maybe 2 small runs in that time. So probably two to three times the value that the priority cargo would give me is what I lost. Now, I got an exceptionally bad set of die rolls on that very last event. Otherwise, I was doing okay. Wasn't doing great. But yeah, I just, long before that, I had kind of grown disgruntled by the game. It just, it's tedious die rolling and fiddling around with little markers or whatever to indicate how much money you have. You could do it all on paper. I don't know if it would be easier that way. It certainly wouldn't be with the camera. With the camera, it's easier with the tokens. But yeah, I can't recommend it. I'm giving it a rating of around 4. It's not as big a headache and as annoying as like Citadel of Blood, which I also just did. Another solo game is. So it's a little less painful, a little less unpleasant, but a less interesting potential story, I guess. I don't know. I didn't find much story in Citadel of Blood, even though it's, fantasy dungeon crawl type thing. Should be in my wheelhouse, right? Whereas, just delivering cargoes is not really all that exciting to me. I'm more interested in the more traditional type of space merchant game where you're going out and you're making investments and, kind of a gal trader type thing. That just is a little bit more exciting to me. But there are plenty of games that are like that. This one is not. This one's based on a different model. That excited me. It interested me. And like I said, I think it catches it very, very accurately. The advanced game just throws a bunch of detail in without having much effect on play other than a bunch of detail. And it's a bunch of detail that's not all that interesting. It's detail like, how often your engines break down a little bit and you have to repair them a little bit. It does give you potentials for screwing yourself over completely if you take too high a risk or something. So that's kind of more intriguing, but in general, it's to your penalty. Like, your victory conditions at the end aren't improved by whether or not you took those risks. It's just you might have to take risks in terms of not spending time. That's the biggie. Anyway, not an exciting game. It's a pity. I must have been interested in it for some reason or another because I did order it. I did bid on it in an auction. Probably I bid very little, but maybe nothing. But something must have caught my eye about it when I looked it over, and it's really just not doing it for me. I haven't had a lot of good luck with the science fiction games that I picked up over, just over the auction time period when I was buying up a lot of those games. I know Trailblazers was pretty lame. I know that came with some interesting review type stuff. I think a lot of times people write things down in BGG and they didn't really play the game or whatever. They just read the rules and said, "Oh, this looks really exciting. I'm excited about it," and they write down what they think's really cool about it, and then they don't really see the impact of it. Or I'm just in a different world from them. But yeah, I see a lot of, I don't really count the rating as being that important. What I count is what people actually write in the comments. But some of the times, the only thing I can conceive of is that they didn't actually play it. They're just really excited by certain aspects of it. I don't know. Could I see anybody enjoying this? I don't know. I really don't. If you're really excited by the idea of figuring out the tiny incremental bonuses that you might get from making one trip versus another, and balancing your economic sheets and all that, Yeah, sure. Uh, in and of itself, without anything else in the story, I just don't see a point to it. There are much better space merchant type games, especially ones with exploration and stuff like that. I just don't see anybody picking this up. It's too tedious, and it's not terribly time consuming. It's just it's tedious work. That's it. Anyway, that's it. Send this up.